In the past, not many people in Vancouver, Canada believed in Buddhism. Those who listened to the Buddha's teachings could almost be counted on one hand. Today, however, the situation has improved remarkably. For the first time, more than 1,800 people attended the celebration of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva's sacred anniversary in Vancouver to pay homage to the Buddha and listen to Dharma teachings. This had never happened before. Most attendees were Chinese, but a considerable number of Westerners also took part. A few days later, the local Buddhist association held its first ever 3-day Mongshan food offering ceremony, presided over by the Venerable Master Chuck Moore, together with many devoted lay Buddhists. Their shared aspiration was to transfer merit to hungry spirits, lonely ghosts, and suffering beings wandering throughout Canada. This was an act of tremendous merit. The memorial ceremony attracted widespread attention throughout Vancouver and was even reported in English-language newspapers. Many Western readers began to understand that Buddhism teaches ways to dedicate merit and offer compassionate assistance to departed beings. Curious visitors came to observe the ceremony, and many developed deep respect for the Buddha's teachings. It became an important opportunity to introduce Buddhist compassion to Canadian society. On the first day of the ceremony, countless hungry ghosts, wandering spirits, ancestral spirits of indigenous peoples, spirits of European settlers, Chinese spirits, and many who had only recently passed away gathered around the Dharma hall each evening to receive the offerings and participate in the Buddhist rites. From my own home, even from a distance, I could clearly see immense numbers of spirits arriving joyfully and departing peacefully. I had already developed the ability to perceive beings from the unseen realm. Something remarkable happened after the ceremony. The number of traffic accidents and fatalities in Vancouver suddenly declined. Normally, during the summer, people traveled frequently, resulting in many traffic accidents. Yet that summer, accidents became unusually rare. Even the local authorities, after reviewing their accident records, publicly announced with surprise, traffic accidents this year have decreased by 52% compared with last year. Whether one believes this remarkable change resulted from the Mongshan memorial ceremony or simply regards it as coincidence is entirely up to each individual. Nevertheless, the reduction of more than half compared to the previous year was a documented fact. When the Ulambana festival arrived, the Buddhist community organized another 3-day Mongshan memorial ceremony. This time, Venerable Master Chuck Moore had already returned to his monastery in Malaysia, so another highly respected monk presided over the event with the assistance of many lay practitioners. During this second ceremony, Canadians from every background, whether Buddhist or not, whether Chinese or Western, attended with joyful hearts. People enthusiastically established memorial tablets for their departed ancestors and deceased family members. Some even requested memorial tablets for beloved pets such as their cats and dogs because of the deep affection they still held for them. There were so many memorial tablets that there was scarcely any room left to place them. The number of spirits arriving to receive the Dharma was again immense. This time, I even saw spirits coming from places much farther away. Let me tell you about some of the wandering spirits in this area. At the entrance to the University of British Columbia is a long, tree-lined avenue that is quiet and shaded. Few pedestrians pass through, though many cars travel along it. Drivers often reported seeing a young Western woman standing beside the road, waving for a ride. Yet after allowing her into the vehicle, they would turn around moments later and discover that she had completely disappeared. She became known as the famous University Ghost, a story frequently reported in Vancouver newspapers because her name appeared in the university's list of missing persons. Recently, however, drivers have no longer reported seeing her. Perhaps she, too, had found liberation through the Mongshan food offering ceremony. Before 1980, the city of Vancouver was relatively small, spanning only a few kilometers. As the city continued to expand, cemeteries that had once stood on the outskirts gradually became surrounded by urban neighborhoods. Among them were 2 large public cemeteries and 1 military cemetery. Mountain View Cemetery. Located in the southern part of the city, Mountain View Cemetery is an old cemetery built in a traditional style. The graves stand closely together, marked by weathered stone monuments engraved with crosses, angels, English inscriptions, and Chinese characters. The aged scenery, covered with moss and surrounded by silence, gives visitors an eerie feeling even in broad daylight. At night, the atmosphere becomes even more unsettling. Thousands of Chinese immigrants are buried here. During the early decades of the 20th century, anti-Chinese discrimination was widespread in Canada. Many Chinese graves were deliberately vandalized. Some were dug up, their remains scattered onto the ground, left exposed to stray animals and neglect. Because many of these deceased had no descendants or relatives remaining in Canada to care for their graves, their spirits continued lingering nearby, filled with sorrow and longing. People passing the cemetery often reported hearing strange cries or mournful sounds. Late at night, drivers sometimes claimed to see figures emerging from among the graves and slowly crossing the road. Believing they were about to hit someone, they slammed on the brakes, only to realize that the road ahead was completely empty. Many of these spirits had crossed the ocean decades earlier in search of a better life. At that time, Chinese immigrants were not permitted to obtain Canadian citizenship easily, nor could they bring their families to join them. Many worked as laborers under extremely difficult conditions. Unable to marry or reunite with their loved ones, they spent their lives earning money to send home to parents, wives, and children in China while enduring profound loneliness in Canada. Their lives ended in sorrow, leaving many with deep regrets that they found difficult to release. For decades, according to the author's account, these spirits continued mourning beside their graves, unwilling to move on. Stories of apparitions appearing near Mountain View Cemetery became well known throughout the area. Yet in the months following the Mongshan food offering ceremony, reports of such sightings became noticeably less frequent. The Military Cemetery. Directly across from Mountain View Cemetery lies the Military Cemetery, now surrounded by densely built residential neighborhoods. Soldiers who died during times of war are buried there. Local residents recounted that on stormy winter nights around midnight, they sometimes heard voices echoing through the cemetery. Some even claimed to witness terrifying figures, soldiers missing heads, arms, or legs, their uniforms covered in blood, marching together in military formation. At times they also reported hearing the deafening sounds of artillery fire and bullets flying through the air, as though an ancient battlefield had briefly returned. Yet during that particular year, according to local accounts, such frightening experiences were no longer reported. The last cemetery is Ocean View Cemetery, where two of my close friends are buried. The first was Dr. N. More than 15 years earlier, he was only 31 years old. He had been orphaned during the war in mainland China. After arriving in Taiwan, he worked while studying, eventually graduating from medical school with outstanding honors before continuing his education overseas. He later completed his medical training in Vancouver and rented a building to establish his own medical office. On Christmas Eve, friends invited him to a holiday dance. That night, while returning home, he was involved in a fatal traffic accident. The evening before his death, he had visited me and shared a strange experience. The previous night, while completing medical training at St. Paul's Hospital, he had remained alone in the anatomy laboratory because of urgent coursework. Around 3 o'clock in the morning, he suddenly saw what appeared to be all the cadavers sitting upright simultaneously. Terrified, he rushed out of the room. He asked me, "Do you think this is some kind of omen?" At that time, I had not yet developed the spiritual insight to perceive karmic causes or previous lives. I simply replied, "It doesn't seem like a good sign. Perhaps you shouldn't attend tomorrow night's dance." He then asked another question. "Do you believe people still have a spirit after death?" I answered without hesitation, "Yes." He sat silently for a long time, lost in thought. I gently encouraged him to learn about Buddhism and the law of cause and effect. After listening quietly, he simply said, "I think Buddhism is far too superstitious." Seeing that he had no wish to discuss it further, I let the conversation end. After Drive North passed away, almost no one came to visit his grave. Year after year, I was the only one who brought flowers to pay my respects. Each time I laid a bouquet upon his bronze headstone, I felt an invisible force drawing my hand firmly against the metal, as though someone were gently holding it there. With tears streaming down my face, I would whisper, "Dr. N. Brother N. You truly endured a life of great hardship." One year, I became seriously ill and was hospitalized, making it impossible for me to visit his grave. Late one night, while lying in my hospital bed, I suddenly saw him. He quietly walked into my room, came to my bedside, and greeted me warmly. With great kindness, he comforted me. "You'll recover very soon. Don't be sad." Startled, I awoke immediately and looked around the room. There was no one there. After I was discharged from the hospital, I once again brought flowers to visit him. As before, the bronze headstone seemed to exert the same mysterious attraction, gently pulling my hand toward it. When the second Mongshan memorial ceremony was held, I sincerely hoped that Dr. N would come to receive the Dharma and the merit dedicated to departed beings. yet I did not see him among the countless spirits who attended. Perhaps his attachment to his earthly remains was still too strong for him to leave. I silently prayed that one day he would awaken, release his attachment to his former body, and willingly move on to his next rebirth. My second friend, Stephen. Another dear friend buried in the same cemetery was a young Westerner named Stephen. He was the beloved son of a physician whom I knew well. His family was Christian. Although Stephen had many siblings, he was especially fond of me. His parents treated me like one of their own children and even invited me to move into their home. Out of consideration, however, I chose instead to rent a room elsewhere so I could continue living with my mother. At that time, Stephen was in his 4th year studying geography at university. Whenever he had free time, he would come to visit me. One day he excitedly told me that during the summer break he intended to travel to northern Canada to find work and become financially independent rather than relying on his father's support. I advised him, "Don't go. Focus on finishing your studies first. Once you've graduated, you'll have every opportunity to support yourself." But he did not accept my advice. Instead, he traveled north and found work surveying roads. Then tragedy struck. One evening, while working near heavy construction equipment, a road roller operator failed to see him. The massive machine ran over him. Within only a few minutes, Stephen lost his life. His death was heartbreaking. The powerful weight of the machine crushed his body beyond recognition. A handsome, healthy young man full of promise was suddenly reduced to a lifeless body that scarcely resembled the person everyone had known. His coffin was brought back to Vancouver for the funeral. According to Western custom, close friends are often invited to help carry the coffin. Stephen had 5 brothers. Since 6 pallbearers were needed, his mother invited me to serve as the 6th bearer, considering me one of Stephen's brothers in spirit. Together with his 5 strong brothers, I helped carry the coffin to the entrance of the church. To our surprise, the coffin suddenly became extraordinarily heavy. With great effort, we finally managed to lift it onto the hearse. Later, when the procession arrived at Ocean View Cemetery, the 6 of us attempted to carry the coffin from the hearse to the gravesite. To everyone's astonishment, it would not move. No matter how hard we tried, it felt impossibly heavy. At that moment, I looked towards Stephen's mother. She had collapsed onto the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. A thought arose within me. Perhaps Stephen simply could not bear to leave his mother. I gently said to her, "Mrs. Stephen seems deeply reluctant to part from you. Please speak to him, only then may he be willing to let us continue." Overcome with grief, she could barely speak. Through her tears she replied,
"Please, would you speak to him for me?"
Unable to continue, she broke down once again. I walked over to the coffin, placed my hand gently upon it, and said softly, "Stephen, all of us love you very much. None of us wishes to lose you. But now it is time for you to rest peacefully. Please don't let your mother suffer even more. Be a good son. I promise I will recite Buddhist sutras and the Buddha's name, dedicating the merit to you." The moment I finished speaking, something extraordinary happened. The moment I finished speaking, all 6 of us heard something extraordinary. From inside the coffin came the sound of a deep sigh, followed by quiet sobbing. Stephen's eldest brother burst into tears. The other 4 brothers were so frightened that they immediately ran away. I had to calm him down and persuade him to return. When all 6 of us lifted the coffin again, it suddenly felt astonishingly light. Without any difficulty, we carried it to the grave and completed the burial. After the funeral, Stephen's entire family moved to the United States. From then on, I visited his grave alone each year, bringing fresh flowers. His grave stood beside that of Dr. N, so whenever I visited, I paid my respects to both friends. Strangely, Stephen's gravestone also seemed to emit the same invisible force that gently drew my hand toward it, just as Dr. N's bronze headstone had done. Some readers may think I am imagining these experiences or inventing stories. But I sincerely hope people understand that, in my experience, those who have passed away are still aware. They continue to perceive and respond in ways we ordinarily cannot see. An unusual scientific investigation. In California, there were once 2 well-known scientists, one a physicist and the other a psychologist. Both publicly declared that they did not believe spirits existed. Determined to test the matter scientifically, they brought a tape recorder into a cemetery. They placed it there during the daytime and left it recording for about 15 minutes. When they played back the recording, they were astonished. It contained numerous unexplained sounds. There were rustling noises, sighs, quiet weeping, and groans. Most striking of all was a faint male voice saying, "This place is very lonely." The incident attracted tremendous attention. Two major television stations from both the United States and Canada sent reporters and camera crews to investigate and broadcast the findings. Millions of viewers watched the footage. Many were deeply surprised. Even the two scientists admitted, "We truly have no explanation for this unusual phenomenon." The recording was later shown in many countries around the world and attracted widespread public attention. At the time, it became an astonishing news story. I am not fabricating this account. Burial and cremation. In my opinion, cremation, as commonly practiced in Buddhism, offers advantages over traditional burial. When a body is buried, the deceased may remain emotionally attached to the physical remains, making it more difficult to let go and continue their journey after death. With cremation, however, the physical body quickly returns to its elements. Because there is less opportunity to cling to the former body, the departed may find it easier to release attachment and receive the support of the Buddha's teachings in moving toward a favorable rebirth or liberation. The merit of memorial ceremonies. Today, Buddhist monastics in many temples regularly conduct memorial ceremonies dedicated to departed beings. Such ceremonies create immeasurable merit and express great compassion toward all sentient beings. From the experiences described above, I believe that Buddhist practices of dedicating merit to the deceased can bring profound benefit. For that reason, I do not consider these ceremonies to be mere superstition. Rather, I see them as meaningful acts of compassion, practical expressions of Buddhist faith, and opportunities to cultivate kindness toward both the living and the departed.